Chris Fleming, Ag in the Classroom from Farm Bureau.
So usually I'm talking to teachers, so if I talk to you like you have a bunch of little students, I apologize. But I'll try to tie the things in. We think that gardening is an excellent way to teach just about anything. And Ag in the Classroom started back in the 80s. They started doing some surveys and asking fourth grade students where their food came from. And we got some surprising answers. Now, I grew up on a farm. My children are growing up on a farm. A lot of you may have grown up on a farm, but that's not normal anymore. And so the things that we just naturally knew, we don't know those things, or the younger students don't. And that it creates some issues when you have some sort of issue come up that would be important to somebody. If they don't have that background, there's all kinds of information out there, and sometimes they will get wrong information. And sometimes those wrong information sources are not just ignorant, they just don't know, but they have a purpose behind it. They're trying to drive an issue one way or another. And so Ag in the Classroom started way back in the United States Department of Agriculture, and each state chose who was going to be kind of in charge of it. In Tennessee, that ended up being Farm Bureau, but we partner with the Extension Service, we partner with the Department of Ag, we partner with all sorts of those co-ops, all those kind of people. And we do training about 1,200 teachers a year. We fund about 40 school gardens a year. In Knox County, we usually have about 12. Sarah Moore Green Magnet Technology Academy, what a name. They have school gardens. Tana used to be the assistant principal there, and then I think she was principal, and then she moved over to South. They were able to go to the White House and help plant the kitchen garden. And they were very excited about that. And so I went over and presented them a little plaque, Tennessee Gardeners and all this kind of stuff. Well, she said, now we're going back. Wonderful. She let, once the TV cameras went away, she let all the kids come up, she signed whatever they wanted to sign. This was the day after Memorial Day. It was the day that Chris Christie and Mr. Obama, President Obama, met about Hurricane Sandy. And so when all the TV cameras left, she said, would y'all like to stay and watch the helicopter land? So the kids were like, yeah. And so we got to go up in front of the White House and stand there. Like I said, no land. So well, would y'all like to come inside? It's going to be a little while. So we got to go in the White House during sequestration when nobody was getting to tour. And then his schedule changed again. It's going to be later, so I had to leave. But the kids did get to stand in a receiving line and shake Mr. Obama's hand. It was really neat. Maybe more like it. But school gardens are a wonderful way to teach math, science, language, arts, all those kind of things, life skills, as you were talking about. There is something healing, I think spiritually healing, of getting back to the earth. In Tennessee, we have an organization, and they work with the Knoxville Botanical Garden. That Every Child Outdoor is a program that encourages kids to get into gardening, and family, boys and girls clubs do that for after school projects. It's just a wonderful thing. So Farm Bureau started funding gardens about 28 years ago, I guess. So all of you that are connected with either 4-H or a school, we fund, Ag in the Classroom funds gardens for $500 for the first year, and then $250 for every year after that you want to keep going. It's a 2-page application. So let me tell you the similarities to what Candy and Ashley are doing, and then the differences. It's both money for gardening. We have the same goals in mind, pretty much. Ours more toward education, theirs more toward producing food and building the community. Ours is ongoing, theirs is not. Ours is just $500, theirs is $2,000. Ours is matching, theirs does not necessarily have to be matched, but ours can be used to match theirs or theirs to match ours. Ours is guaranteed. If you write it, we'll make sure you get it. If you mess it up, we'll say, you need to fix this, and then we'll make sure that it works. Theirs is competitive. There's a limited number of theirs. There's an unlimited number of ours. as long as my boss keeps raising money, I'll keep giving it away. I like this situation. I wish I could figure out how to get my wife onto that thing, but she would make the money and I could spend it. That's probably won't happen either. Ours are ongoing. There's, this one cycle for theirs. But we all encourage community and partnerships and reaching out to develop sustainability. Dan will talk more about sustainability a little bit and how to keep it going. Now, the reason that Farm Bureau thinks that gardening is so very important is that's the best way for students to see the challenges of growing food for a growing world. Now, this is the earth, right? This is not actual size, by the way. This is the earth, and we live right out there. We're somewhere over here in this calculation right now. How many of these do we have? Just one. And right now we have about 7.2 billion people that live on the earth. And it's estimated by the United Nations that by the year 2050 we'll have around 9 billion people. Some people say as many as 10. American Farm Bureau put out a book. Some of y'all got the little pocket cards there, the Farm Facts. We put out a book, Farm Facts, and it tells how much of your food dollar goes to the farm, how much of USDA budget's based on food, or how much is SNAP program, or how much is other different things. But they made a typographical error in there 3 years ago, and it said the United Nations estimates that by the year 2050 there will be 9 million people living on Earth. Just one letter, But everyone's like, that's wrong, right? And I'm like, well, I'm a Baptist premillennialist that believes in the rapture, so hey, we might be at 9 million. I don't know, maybe whoever did that one, maybe they're doing the same thing. But if we have more people, are we going to have more land? More land available for farming? Now there is land growing. Every time a volcano erupts in Hawaii and it trickles down and it hits the ocean, it turns into parent material. And then if it stays there long enough without eroding away, it'll eventually turn into soil. So we are growing a little bit. New York, Manhattan Island is bigger than it started out because they keep adding on. But it's not arable land. So we don't talk about how much of the land that we have can be used for growing our food. And one way we can do that, and use this with small children, is to compare the earth to an apple. If the apple was our earth, this, we'll represent it with this, how much of the earth is covered with land, and what's the other part covered with? All right, so we got one earth, two surfaces, water and land, and about what portion is water, would you think? All right, anybody going higher? Three quarters is if you're doing fractions. I'm not good at fractions. If you're doing percentage, it's around 70 to 72%, and it all depends on what you do with Antarctica down there, because you can drive on it, but it's water, it's ice, right? Greenland is ice and Iceland is green, but it's another problem. So we're going to say 3/4. So if I had a real apple here, I'd slice this up. I didn't bring an apple this morning. I brought a banana, but it doesn't quite work the same way. So this is covered our surface of our earth, and we cannot drive a tractor on there. We can get food out of there. We can get seafood. We can get McDonald's. Was it 15 years ago, had a McLean Deluxe, and they used very fine textured particle beef, which became known as pink slime, which it wasn't, but that's what they called it. But they mixed for lack of a better term, a food glue that was made from seaweed. So it increased the protein, it held it together. I really like the taste of it. You put enough ketchup on it, salt, and you couldn't tell the difference. But it had very low fat content. That's what people were wanting. So we could get McDonald's McLean Deluxes from the ocean. We're not going there. So we're down to 25% or 1/4. And if we take all the places where we live, all the places where we're already occupying, like where this building is, where these baseball fields are, where the soccer field is, or what is the sports complex up here. I wish we had these in Loretta, where I live. If we take those out, we've taken a half of the fourth away. So a half of the fourth is an eighth. Thank y'all for playing along. Oh, I took the wrong fourth of an eighth, half of an eighth, half of the fourth away, which was an eighth. I took away the part that was desert. Desert's where it doesn't get enough rainfall to grow food, where it's too rocky or where it's too steep, some of those kind of things. So we're down to 1/8. We can divide this 2/3 of this eighth, or 3/4 of this eighth. It's too early in the morning for math. These are the places where it's too wet, too swampy, where our wildlife lives, where our cities are, where the soil is just bad. Some places just have bad soil. UT's song, Rocky Top, is that one of Tennessee's state songs?
5 of them, that's one of
We
them.
got 5 of them, that's one. I learned something from Dan all the time. Corn don't grow at all on Rocky Top. Ground's too rocky. We don't get into the corn in the yard, so that's that part. So we are down to 1/32 of the surface of the earth. Now this represents about 10% of the moon, but 1/32 of the surface of the earth, about 3%, is where we produce all of the food that feeds the 7.2 billion people. So if we add people, that also takes away a little bit of this land, because they have to have somewhere to live, they have to have somewhere to shop, they have to have somewhere to drive, all those kind of things. So we are very concerned about anything that would affect the fertility of this and the availability of this. And so sometimes we get into a rub with people that would call themselves conservationists, that would say, okay, we can't farm this part because it has a 3-legged chicken living on it, all right? There are people that, you know, if there's an animal out there, they'll say, oh, it's important, and it is important, because it's all important together. So we are concerned about that, and one way we try to show our concern is to do school gardens. And it all gets to the idea of carrying capacity. Y'all heard that term, carrying capacity? I've seen Ashley's carrying capacity. She can carry about 120 pounds when it's time to go, and I'm still talking. We have the keyword pineapple. Pineapple. Can you grow pineapples in Tennessee? If you hear that question, that means it's time for you to shut up. You gotta go to the next person. That doesn't mean we're growing pineapples in Tennessee. She would have the van completely loaded. I'm still over here talking to somebody. Pineapple, 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 pineapple. I need a volunteer. Not all of you at one time. Thank you. All right, can you juggle?
Oh, no.
I can juggle 3. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so how many of these do you think you can carry?
Carry? Can we
Tote.
try, or just
How many of
get?
these are the tote? Pack?
Probably, 6.
6? All right, we're going to increase your carrying capacity. So I didn't say where you had to carry them, right? Put one in your pocket. Can I throw some more to you?
Sure.
All right, so that was 6 billion people that she's maintaining. 7. This could get touchy here.
Do you want a female volunteer?
Well, it was a rethought that, I should know good. All right, how many are 3? Whoa, wait.
Open my hand.
Okay.
I was trying to open up my hand more so we could.
That was Polynesia just died there, I'm sorry. I believe we've reached your carrying capacity, which is 2, 4, 6, 7. All right, you put those back in, thank you very much. Now, is there any way she could have carried more, you reckon? I did this for the 4-H kids at Roundup this summer. last summer, and I had a girl, you know, and she got like 8 or 10, you know, I was kind of impressed. I can get more than that, this boy got up there. He has big hands, but he started doing this. He said, you didn't tell me how I do it? I said, that's an excellent point, because if we can, use technology, use tools, a shirt, bigger hands, get a partner to come over there where we could, you know, share, then he got up to, I think it was 69 balls that he was holding on to by applying some knowledge, applying some skill. Does that apply to growing food?
Absolutely.
Pardon me while I retrieve these balls here. All right, oh Lord, this is going to get off scene here pretty quick. But she came up. I've got them all. Because she applied not only some smarts, she applied some tools. And so we have tools with agriculture that allows us to increase the amount of food that's available. And that's a way that we can impress that on children. Now, when agriculturists get upset is when people start taking the tools away to say this is not something we should be able to use. One of those is fertilizer, one of them is genetics, all kinds of different tools that may or may not be a good thing. I don't think I brought enough of these. I'll get one of these to each group at least. I got one guy?
Yeah.
Hey, it worked out. This talks about, you know, this is pretty heavy stuff here. This is probably high school kind of stuff. But it talks about soil biology and soil ecology. And we are going to talk about soil from the idea of what is soil made of. We said we had one earth. It has two surfaces. They are
Land and water.
land and water. We're going to talk about the land portion, which makes up 1/10 of the part of the land is available for food, and 3% of the surface of the earth. Soil has 4 ingredients. Are you saying pineapple back there? Yes, start getting that ready. We're going to show you 3 layers of soil. 3 layers of soil. But right now, we'll talk about 4 ingredients that are in soil. So what is soil made of? Air is in there. If you don't have any air in the soil, then it is called mud, right? Or a bog. So air is one. What's the second ingredient in soil?
I can tell all of them, but I'll
Go right ahead. They're going to let you.
Sand, silt, and clay. Is that what you're talking about, the different types?
That's the particle
Particles,
size.
okay,
right?
the minerals and.
So water, minerals.
Mhm.
Minerals start out as big chunks of rock, right? Or they might have started out floating around in the ocean and they settled down and became rocks, sedimentary, and we talked about all those things. So air, water, so the balance of those two determine whether it's dust or it's mud or it's just right, like the 3 bears, too little, too much, just right. So air, water, minerals, and then what's that 4th ingredient?
The microorganisms.
The microorganisms you see on there, we lump those into what's called organic matter. Organic matter. Organic matter is a great word in gardening because we can see it in practice. Sometimes we're confused about what organic actually means. Really, organic just means it has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in it. But it's come to take on a whole life of itself, that it's natural, that it's non-man-made, all these things, and some of those fit in, some of them are misleading, but we'll go there. Organic matter is things that were alive or are alive that make the soil better. The way they make the soil better is they increase the water holding capacity. If you have this bucket full of sand and we filled it up, that's an 18-gallon tub, and if we had those balls in there and we filled it up with water, it would probably only hold about 8 gallons of water. But if we had holes in the bottom, the water would go right through, right? Now, if you put a kid in there, and you put 6 gallons of water, it would stick to them, right? They're sticky, kids are. So soil is sticky too. So if you have medium textured soil, sand, silt, and clay, so some of the silt and clay, it holds that water in there. So you could pour, you have it filled with good sand, add water to the top, holes in the bottom. Probably if you could get 10 gallons of water in there, 9.5 gallons would run out. So you only have a half gallon of water left. If you put clay in there, you start adding water, it seals over and won't let the rest of the water soak in. So it holds more, but it also makes it run off. And then the third type is the silt, which is the just right, the mama bear, papa bear, baby bear. It's the just right one, and it holds 2 inches of water for every 36 inches of soil. Now that's way more soil science than we ever wanted, but that's the good one. That's what we need to have. So three layers, 3 particle sizes, 4 ingredients: air, water, organic matter, and minerals. Minerals make up about 90%. Organic matter, if we can get that up to 3 to 5%, we're doing good. If you get over 10%, that's some of that black, rich soil that we'd all love to have, but we'd have to move on to Tennessee to get it. We don't have it. And then air and water just have to be in a balance, so it's not too wet, not too dry. All right, so those 4 ingredients mixed in 3 layers, it all starts out as the parent material down the bottom. And in order for you to figure out how to visually demonstrate that to the Boys and Girls Club, or to the special needs children, or to your middle schoolers in guidance, we are going to eat some. Ag in the classroom, we always eat. Kind of like the Doritos, eat all you want, we'll make more. Farmers say, eat all the food you want, we'll grow more. That helps our profit margin, so we want you to eat. So we have particle sizes over here that are going to represent our 3 layers of soil. And the bottom layer is the parent material. In Middle Tennessee, where I'm from, well, let's say where Dan resides, not where he's from, he's a Texan. But where he resides, if you dig down in the ground deep enough, you're going to hit limestone rock. That's the parent material. And we're going to represent limestone rock. What's the parent material over here? Shale or something, or some kind of rock? Shale or something. So we're going to represent that parent material as these nasty old gigantic honeycomb cereals. Now if you eat these without milk on them, they're going to shred the roof of your mouth and you'll never be able to taste vinegar again, because it's just it's tough. But that's the parent material. When that starts to break down through weathering, that's another word we have to learn in supposed to be in front of the camera. Through weathering, this is supposed to break down through freezing and thawing and erosion and wind, and it turns into smaller particles, silt maybe, silt, sand, and clay, and that is called subsoil. Parent material or bedrock. Subsoil is breaking down from there. And then what do you think we call the stuff on top? Soil scientists are genius, aren't they? Call the top stuff top. Let's not make it too difficult. That's darker because it has all that dead stuff in it. Now, my favorite way to do this, if you look in your fancy package you have here, the very bottom book with the spiral down has the directions for this. It's called alphabet soup. Yeah, it's kind of a bluish color. And if you open up the letter M for mud pies, I always call these dirt cups, but in our book we call them mud pies because we always already had something for D. It was, I don't remember what D was, but it's not. So if you notice, the ingredients there are not honeycombs and sugar smacks and cocoa puffs. It's crumbled up vanilla wafers and then chocolate pudding and then crushed up Oreos on top. Oreos work wonderful because they taste good.
Yeah.
And when I do these workshops, whatever y'all don't eat, I get to eat. All right, so I like to do it that way. And the Oreos have that white cream in them, which looks a lot like bird poop, all right, which is an organic matter, right? The birds eat the seeds. Sometimes we don't want them to eat seeds, but they eat a lot of our seeds. And then their waste turns into fertilizer, so you get a cycle going. So we have parent material, subsoil, topsoil, and then if you wanted to be real neat, you could put some gummy worms on top to represent some of those bacteria and microorganisms that you have in your thing. My soil science teacher said that in an acre foot of soil, that's 43,560 square feet, 1 foot deep, there's 200 pounds of microorganisms in that layer of soil. And so they're very important to doing it. So what I want you to do, I guess we'll come around this way, or y'all go the outside either one. We'll make your layers of soil, and then I want to talk to you about how can we increase our 10% of the land to make it more productive, increase its carrying capacity. Right down through there, and then y'all can snap. Yes, you can put however much of the subsoil, parent material, subsoil, topsoil. If you only use a handy dandy food service gloves, they're back there too. Now, if we were doing this regionally correct, here in East Tennessee, maybe 3 inches of topsoil. And then, well, how deep is the parent material? It goes all the way up to the mantle and the core, right? So that's, I'm not gonna fill that up in the cup. If we were in West Tennessee next to Mississippi River, some of that topsoil can be a couple of feet thick. It's washed in from Indiana and Missouri and places like that during the fall.
So those areas they targeted were large, plants, farms?
Yes.
Yeah. Bed of soil area.
What's the Purple Mountain Majesty? What is that song, man? Is that called America the Beautiful? America the Beautiful. Our food plains.
Yeah.
We haven't really changed anything. When the first explorers came here, we had tall grasses growing in the middle. And we used corn, and then you had the bread basket to eat. And then other places had trees. And that depends on what kind of soil is there.
Yeah.
So it works much better if you work with nature than if you try to
Yes, that's
go
a.
opposed to nature. So we do select those. Now, I didn't bring any milk, I should have. I could have stolen it at the Comfort Inn breakfast bar before. They would probably notice when I'm going out with that little. If you were to take some milk and pour over the top of this, what would happen to the color that's in the chocolate of the Cocoa Puffs? It will start filtering down. That's called leaching. So if we apply way too much fertilizer on top of the soil, and it's a good soil that lets water infiltrate, it's going to take that chemical with it. I use the word chemical. Kids think all chemicals are harmful. We know everything is a chemical, so you have to know good chemicals, bad chemicals, chemicals in the right place, chemicals in the right amount. There's 4 R's with chemicals. Apply the right chemical to the right place, the right amount, and for the right purpose. And if you do those, it's following the label, and they increase our carrying capacity by huge numbers. When I grew up, Dan's gonna talk about tomatoes in a minute. And we did it all wrong, I know now, because I learned from Dan. But there's a guy that had chicken houses, and we'd go over there and get chicken manure out of the chicken houses, chicken litter, and bring it and put it on our garden. The reason I know that is because the chicken manure rode in the back of the truck, the same place I rode. So you end up scooping a whole truckload of chicken manure, and then you ride back there, and you got feathers and other things flying around everywhere, and you smell like that for a couple of days. But we would take that and put it on our garden as a compost, organic fertilizer. And it's high in nitrogen, that's why it burns your eyes and makes rust out the bed of your truck after a little while with that. Because it has so much nitrogen in it, which tomatoes don't need a whole lot of nitrogen, so we were probably going the wrong route there on that one. But if that chicken manure is on top and you get a good rain, it can leach through the soil just as well. And so you can end up with some bad things in your water supply. I'm in East Tennessee, so I have to be careful with this one. There's an extension agent that went by an old farmer's house, and he said, can I use your restroom? He goes, yeah. He goes, can I come in the house? He goes, oh, no, you don't have to, it's around back. So we went back there, outhouse, which is normal for East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. And when he was coming back out of the outhouse, he said, what's that other little structure there beside it? He goes, oh, it's my well. He goes, it's not a good idea to have your well and your outhouse right next to each other. He goes, really? He goes, yeah, you need to move that. So he comes back by and sees him a couple weeks later. And so I see where you moved your well, or you kept your well in the same place, you moved your outhouse. He goes, yeah, but now my daggone well dried up. Probably has happened. The cold is a joke there. But whatever's on top can seep into your soil. So farmers have to pay attention to what they put on the soil. Now farmers regulate the amount of chemicals and fertilizers they put on because it costs money, right? Now my wife, we've already established she's not the money saving person. When it comes to our yard, if there's some dandelions out there, she'll go buy 5 gallons of MSMA and Roundup and DDT and whatever she can get, and she'll put it all on that one little spot because she's gonna kill that dandelion. I'm like, honey, if you just pull that dandelion up, you probably have a better shot at it. But homeowners apply 8 times more chemicals per acre than farmers do because it's cheap and they can afford to do it. And by God, nothing's gonna mess up my grass, right? In Nashville, we had an instance, Cumberland River runs around Nashville, so they measured the amount of organic material in the water before it got to Nashville, and they measured the amount of organic material in the water when it went past Nashville, actually going north, and it was higher. And so they were blaming it on farmers. Well, there's farmers in Davidson County, but not as many as you think, especially not as many beef, cattle, chicken farmers, that kind of thing. So they finally traced it down, and what it was dogs. Most people in Nashville have to put their dog in a pen, so the dog does its business in the pen, and then you get a good rainstorm coming, and it washes that into the storm drain, which goes right into the Cumberland River. So instead of that manure being spread out over lots of land, it was concentrated into the water. So where they thought they were going to say, aha, the farmers are polluting the Cumberland River, it's PP and Fido was actually polluting the Cumberland River, and that happens. That's a little harder to fix, even though where you put your pen, they choose that. All right, so 1 earth, 2 surfaces, 3 layers of soil, 4 ingredients. So how are we going to get to 9 billion on that little piece of soil? And actually, we're going to have to reduce that every time we add some people. You hand out those biotechnology ag bags there. I want to suggest that one way is using the technology that we have today and adding the technology that will be added in the future. And biotechnology is the word that means applying the science that we have and the knowledge we have through technology to solve a problem. Now it also includes scary things, genetics. It also includes BMPs is something the Extension's been doing for a long time. Best management practices and how we can get the most out of there. These are available classroom sets of 30 for $5, or better, download them for free. And if you have a whiteboard, a Promethean, whatever all those things are called, they keep changing the names of them. You can put one section at a time up on there. We have tests online, so they can go read a little section, go and answer the quiz about it. Gets them ready for the 10 Ready test, which is all online. So kids, third grade kids have to read 4 paragraphs and a paragraph telling them how to answer the questions about the 4 paragraphs, and type on the keyboard to get their score for 10 Ready. Not a lot of third graders are typists, right? I'm not very good at typing, especially if I gotta read 4 paragraphs and then read another paragraph telling me what I've just read, and then the instructions are over on the right and they had to scroll over if they didn't have a wide, and then on the back talks about careers. So, my time is just about up. I want to throw me my shoe. One way of dealing with less land, more people is to have less people. A lot of environmentalists, including some from Tennessee, said that man is a cancer on the earth. So if we just get rid of some of men, the earth will take care of itself. Some men, probably my wife would probably, put some on the list. I might be on there. But I think man was probably the top reason for their being here, just being a religious kind of person that way. But the carrying capacity there has to include wildlife, people, all of those companion animals, all those things. And so China decided 35 years ago, one family, one child. We're at the end of that now. They just repealed that somewhat because they were at about 68% males, 31% females, and 1% confused. And that makes for a bad society when you have a third of your men knowing they will never have a chance at a female because they're just not out there. And that's where sex trafficking and all that kind of stuff has come from them going in and raiding other countries and bringing their women over. So that's a horrible kind of thing to think of. So that wasn't a really good solution, saying no more than one kid per. And the worst part of it was, since China preferred males over females, then you had all this almost genocide of people in Chinese culture. So that's not a good answer. Now, me and my wife have bought into this, and we're done. We have 3 children, and we're not having any more. She told me we're not having more, and I agree with it. And I think my children are not going to reproduce. I've kind of seen them. I think, they're probably not going to make it. My 23-year-old is 6'6", kind of thin frame like I am. My middle son is a freshman at Tennessee Tech. He's 6'5". He's the runt. He's kind of skinny. Football player. And then my baby, this is the shoe he grew out of. Okay? He is 6'11", 18 years old, weighs 265 pounds, still growing. This is a size 17 shoe if you want to know. Costs about $150. If you get it in orange, neon, or purple or something like that, you get it for $30 at Nike outlet store. He wears lots of orange, green, and neon shoes because we just say that's the one we have. People will see this shoe and they'll see him and see us. And I got a family picture where we're all there, and then he's up here. He's 7 inches taller than I am. So just picture my head up here. And they'll say, what happened to him? And I'm like, I think the question should be, what happened to us? He is the genetic potential. Every time his body was ready to grow, we had the food there for him to do it. He drinks about a gallon of milk a day. So he said, that's it, it's at Walmart milk. It's at Walmart. I said, well, he hasn't developed a mammary system yet, so I don't think it's exactly there. He had the genetic potential to be at least 7 foot tall, and he's gonna be there. So apparently I was underfed, and his brothers were underfed, but we did a really good job with him. So if we can apply the science that we know today, the science that we will learn tomorrow, and if your students and the people that come to your garden can realize that carrying capacity can be increased with technology and with tools, and then we also have to do things like not wasting. We have to do things like learning better ways to preserve. Over half of the food we produce is either wasted or lost through getting old or getting out of date, those kind of things. So we can fix those kind of things. We can return some of those. With genetics, is there anything that grows in the desert? There's a few succulents that grow there, right? Like cactus. You know, if we could take the trait that allows a cactus to grow in the desert with 8 inches of rain, put that one gene into corn, so corn could grow in land that has 20 inches of rain instead of 40, we could double the amount of land we have to grow food crops. Now, if we do that the old-fashioned way of crossbreeding, we might get those prickly things that come on the cactus along with the water capacity. You remember, y'all are too young for this, but a long time ago, people used shucks in the outhouse. If you had cactus mixed in there, that would not be a good thing, right? So we want to get that one trait without getting the other trait. And that is a scary thing called genetic modification. And that's something that we have to figure out how to work with, how to deal with. But it is a way to increase the carrying capacity of Earth, which doesn't necessitate the killing off of a bunch of people. A lot of people would be just as happy if we went back to 5 billion people. Most people would say, oh, that'd be okay as long as I'm in the 5 billion. I'm not the 2 billion that gets killed off. And that's the problem we have in the United States when third world countries end up starving because of decisions that we make. When we tell people they can't use certain kinds of fertilizer or something, certain kind of seeds, then they're the ones that pay the price, not us. We're going to have our food available. The United States decided in 1970 to 72 we're going to have cheap food whether we have any farmers left or not. And we've done a good job of that, of producing enough food for everybody. America is one of the few places that they had a meeting for malnourishment on one side of the road and a meeting about obesity on the other side of the road. And the only thing they had in common, they both blamed the farmer. They said the farmer either doesn't grow the right kind of food or he grows too much cheap food, so we eat it. You know, it's there, we gotta eat it. But in America, we have that problem. It ends up being a solution that we can have. Questions or comments? I've taken too much of your time already. Our workshops will be in June. We have one at, probably gonna be at South Knox Elementary. That one is third week of June. If you go to our website, it's agclassroom.org/TN. And if you go there, you'll have our dates. It's online registration, no cost for it. You get a tub of materials. That book is one of the pieces. You get about 75 pieces. That's one of them, the alphabet soup. For coming there, you're qualified for one of our $500 school garden grants. It does have to be connected to a school. Boys and Girls Club, we've had one at Sarah Moore Green Magnet Technology School. We've had one at Dogwood Elementary, at their Boys and Girls Clubs that are connected there. Elizabethton does some of our school gardens. It doesn't have to be a garden. I know y'all are here for gardening, but some folks up here in East Tennessee purchase incubators with it and hatch out eggs. We have a school in Sumner County, kindergarten class, that have hen houses. So the kindergartners go out each one and collect the eggs, come back and wash off the eggs, put them in the little dozens, mark off their tally marks, how many dozen did I collect. Then they go stand out in the car rider line and say, you know, fresh eggs, $20. Who's gonna turn down a kindergartner? Right? And so they sell all their eggs, they go back in, they mark off their tally marks, does my money match up with what I did? So they're learning business, they're learning math, they're learning marketing, they're learning, persuasion is probably not the right, manipulation is what they're learning. But they also raise hydroponic kale, which is grown in water, not in soil, leaf lettuce, some other things, and sell that to Nashville restaurants that want organic crops in there. Dan will talk about the $10 salads later, so I'll get into that. But those are kindergarten. It's Union Elementary in Sumner County. The teacher's name is David Collins. He doesn't get our grant money anymore. He could probably fund our things from all that stuff he sells. But he did apply again a couple of years ago when the tornadoes came through Gallatin, took their chicken houses with them, so they had to start over on the chicken farm. But what a better way to teach kids that it's important to take care of life, human life and animal life, and that there's a purpose for animals and food, and that is to make the world a better place.
What about, I know you said that it could be like chicken related or hen related, and that it doesn't have to be a garden. Have you done any grants for vermicomposting?
We've had people that added composters. So yes.
I compost with earthworms, and so,
Absolutely.
okay, so that would be something that could be.
The only thing we don't, all this money is donated by the farmers, and if you include like the butterfly garden, the pollinator garden, those kind of things, just don't put it in our side of the grant.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's important for the garden, but they would rather it be showing food comes from. But earthworms are a great way to do it.
Okay.
So those are $500 and $250 for every year after that as you continue on, even if it don't work. Because that's a great thing about gardening. It's always educational, even if it's not productive. The kids will learn, hey, you got to take care of these things. You know, it's got to have some water, it's got to have some tender care. All right. Thank you all for my time.
Thank you, Chris.